Hey gang, how's it going? Welcome to the Inside Wag Nutrition Podcast. I am Josh, and today we are talking about all things alcohol. Alcohol's a kind of unique and nuanced piece of the nutrition puzzle, and as coaches, we all like to help you figure this stuff out and either eliminate alcohol from your diet from for a certain amount of time, depending on your goals, or how to like work it in a way that keeps you keeps you enjoying it and still having fun with your friends if that's your thing, and then working through how to stay on track and keep your progress going. So Chris, why don't you go ahead and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. So we wanted to cover some high level notes about alcohol. And the purpose of this episode is to kind of let you know what alcohol is, what it does, the effect that it has on you. And then we'll go into the nuances of how we actually track that into your calories and macronutrients. But from a high level perspective here. So although technically it's considered a macronutrient, alcohol is its own calorie content, and alcohol is not essential for survival. And it's not considered one of the three main macronutrients, which is normally protein, carbs, and fat.
Contrary to what some people would hope.
Yep. Right. Exactly. Yep. Or people think or want to believe, or what the news may tell you is healthy. Right. But, we all know that, or most of us know that proteins and carbs all have 4 calories per 1 gram, whereas fat has 9 calories per 1 gram. And with alcohol, there's 7 calories per gram. So unlike protein, carbs, and fat, the calories from alcohol contain next to no nutritional value. Like it's kind of like an empty spend, if you will. Yeah. So what that means is you're less likely to feel full after drinking alcohol because the calories you ingest carry no fiber, no actual volume. There's nothing there, or healthy vitamins or minerals that your body needs to thrive. So what happens when you drink alcohol is your body prioritizes the digestion of alcohol ahead of anything else you have eaten. So it kind of treats it like a toxin, like this foreign entity that it's like, what is this? We need to get this out of our body. So it turns all of its attention to eliminating this toxin, Trojan horse that made its way into your body, right? In a way. And so alcohol is going to get burned first as a fuel source before your body uses anything else. And what this usually means is that that includes glucose from carbohydrates or lipids from fats. And so, other words, almost everything else like fat burning takes a back seat as your body handles the alcohol in your system. So that's something to keep in mind and maybe be aware of when you take that sip and being like, fat loss is my goal. Fat loss is my goal. And then kind of like, see how that aligns with things, right? Yeah. So yeah, Josh, do you want to cover the other high level points here?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many like different nuances to this thing. I mean, within the little bit that Chris just talked about, you could deep dive into each one of those. So, I mean, we're going to talk about how to track it all and how to make it work, for you maybe in your diet, but it's such a nuanced topic that, everyone's going to have like different opinions and things on it, and how you should approach it. And that's why it's always good to talk to your coach about it. But one of the things that I think is most interesting about alcohol consumption is how much it impacts your recovery throughout the week. Like if you're training super hard and you have like some drinks during the week, it can really, really have an impact on your CNS and your ability to recover before that next session comes up. It definitely impacts sleep. I know for a lot of people that wear Whoops will talk about that. And if you are a Whoop wearer, if you have one and you have a couple drinks and then go to sleep that night, chances are you've seen a drastic dip in your recovery the next morning. And that's just because the alcohol is just a CNS suppressant, and it really, really kind of just like bogs you down. And then the next day, if you have a few drinks, we know how that feels. It's not great. You're generally dehydrated, and you don't do a whole lot. I mean, depending on what you did the night before, you just kind of like, you're kind of lethargic, and that doesn't add to, your daily expenditure, and you're not exactly jumping out of bed ready to rock in the morning. So, so alcohol, the night before can have 24, sometimes 48 hours of like lasting effects on you. And that's something that everyone should consider, especially if you're on a weight loss program or like you're looking for performance enhancement in the gym. muscle building too. It affects all of that stuff. So just things to take into consideration. Obviously, over long periods of time, lots of alcohol consumption can lead to fatty liver disease. And that is obviously not great. It can do some serious damage. And it just affects the way that your body metabolizes and stores carbohydrates and fats as well. So, what else do we got? Alcohol. Yeah, it causes stress on the stomach and intestines. Absolutely. And all these things, I mean, I would like to know if anyone listening thought, yeah, that sounds like it's for me.
Yeah, right.
Alcohol sounds like something I could get into because it's sure it's a social thing. And, there's certain like social, cues or customs and things like that. Like, yeah, absolutely. Special occasions, toast to the bride and groom, things like that, of course. But it's
in the most, concerning places too, like a baby shower. It's found everywhere.
It's found everywhere.
It's found everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, like we don't want to come across as like, Debbie Downers or party poopers or whatever, but it's like
party poopers.
Yeah. as coaches and as people that want to see you do your best, we have to be able to share the information and let you guys make the decisions yourself. So that's all we're trying to do here, gang. Yeah. A big part of consuming alcohol and fitting it into your diet is about finding balance. And that's going to be different for everybody, but we are here to help you do that. So let's go ahead and talk about that and how to track it and how to kind of work it into your diet a little bit.
Yeah. So as you know, you probably know, being anyone who's drank alcohol, whether it be something served in a glass or you've gone and actually bought in some canned or packaged version of alcohol, namely beer, ciders, wines, mixed cocktails, things like that. Some may or may not have food labels on them. And there's a lot of like questioning that goes in when you look at the information on those nutrition labels compared to how we understand looking at nutrition labels on foods that outline, the fat content, carb content, and protein content, and then how the levels of those different macronutrients add up to the total calories in that food source. And it's similar to alcohol, but different. So unlike food labeling regulated by the FDA, alcohol is regulated by the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. So who doesn't require nutrition labeling. So that's why you find some that do, some that don't.
Which is nuts,
right? So it's kind of really in a way, an unregulated thing in terms of informing and educating the public or the consumer on the consumption of those items. So there's kind of like this squirrely area, gray area there, right? And so when you do find a label on one of your drinks, it's time to ask some questions and look a little deeper. And we're going to help you look a little deeper because there's some things going on. So an example is, like a nutrition label on a beer or something, right, can say that there's only 3 grams of carbs, yet shows that the total calories in the drink is 120 calories. So we know if we do the math, if there's 3 grams of carbs and 1 gram of carbs is equivalent to 4 calories, then 3 times 4 calories is 12. So that's 12 calories based on what we know about macronutrients. And so there's 108 calories that are unaccounted for. And guess where those calories are coming from? The actual alcohol in the drink, And so generally what the food labels represent is ingredients inside that alcoholic beverage. And that represents the macronutrient content of those ingredients, but not the calories from the alcohol. So that's that difference and vast difference that you see in actually doing the math with the macronutrients and then comparing it to the total calories in the beverage. So right off the bat, we know that this nutrition label is wrong and it is not to be trusted. So we're not going to track that example as 3 grams of carbs and be like, 3 grams of carbs in this beer, I can have 20 of these today, right? I can fit it in my macros, no problem. Guess what? No, you can't.
No, you can't. Nope.
So tracking alcohol using labels as is for multiple drinks, multiple nights of the week and all that, those calories can add up really quickly if done incorrectly. So to track alcohol when tracking macros, we allocate the calories in alcohol to carbs and or fats, either carbs, fats, or somewhere in between. And we never, ever, ever substitute alcohol for protein because protein is just too darn important. We knew that for muscle preservation, muscle growth, appetite, satiety, sustainability of the diet, enjoyability, maintaining a calorie deficit. It's what helps make things more tolerable, essentially. So some strategies for deciding how much you'll drink and how you'll make it fit into your calories is, we look ahead at your day and the overall plan to determine if you'll track the calories into your carbs, fats, or protein, or a portion of both, not protein, sorry. And so which macro, carbs or fat, will be easier to save or make room for that alcohol. I would say for probably most people who maybe aren't keto per se, and generally I would say if you're keto, you're probably not drinking alcohol because technically that's not keto, right? But if you're just a traditional flexible dieter, you generally have more carbs to work with than you will fat. So most will probably prefer to shave out some room in their carb intake for the day to allocate alcohol into there because they can't spare the fats because, a lot of people maybe keep it in the range of 25 to 30% of total calories allocated to fats. So an example of how we would track calories from a alcoholic beverage would be, so if we're going to track towards carbs, we would figure out the known calories of the drink. And so for this example, the 120 calories of this random beer example I mentioned earlier that only showed 3 grams of carbs. We're not going to pay attention to the carbs. We're going to take the total calories, 120 calories, right? And if we divide that by 4, then the math comes down to 30 grams of carbs. So real easy. Divide 120 calories by 4. That means 30 grams of carbs that you're going to track for that beverage. Nice and easy. On the other hand, if you take that 120 calories and divide it by 9 to track towards your fats, we're going to roughly count that as 13 grams of fat. Pretty simple. And you just maybe find a quick add entry in your MyFitnessPal, your Macros First, whatever food entry you're using, or you'll go and create just a custom entry. And this is what I see a lot of clients doing is that they make some custom entry, label it the thing that they drank, and then pop in what they calculated for that drink. And that's all fine and dandy and it works. But what I like to do is have a system so that no matter what you drink, the end result is the same. And it doesn't matter to differentiate what it was or whatever, just what it was in terms of calorie value. So you can go into your food tracking app, create a new entry. I like to label it something like alcohol-carbs. And the only information you put into that record is 1 gram in the carb field, and you hit save. And then I've got that record where I can pull up, pop in 30 grams of carbs, hit save, and know that that was carbs contributed from alcohol. Do the same thing for a fat entry, create a custom entry, label it alcohol-fat, whatever, put 1 gram of fat in the fat field, hit save, and then you've got that entry to use to track as 13 grams of fat. Yep. So on the other hand, if we wanted to kind of partition this between carbs and fat, because maybe we're like slipping it in after the fact and playing some macro Tetris at the end of the day, or we just want to maybe evenly distribute that so we can see what the remaining macro budget is we've got to work with. Let's say we're planning a couple drinks ahead of time. We take that 120 calories, divide it by 2, that's 60 calories. So just divide 60 by 4. And then you've got 15 grams of carbs. And then on the other half, 60 divided by 9. And then they'll track it as 6.6, but I round it up to 7. I'll just call it 7 grams of fat. And then so 15 grams of carbs, 7 grams of fat. Nice and easy. And so if you're drinking like multiple beers, just add up, say you're having 3 beers, add up the total calories of those beers and then do the math and then just input that quick add entry or whatever it is, your method for tracking, and you're good to go. Gravy. It's easy. It's accounted for, and it'll help you stay within your calorie deficit and your budget for the day. Additionally, we've got tools that make this easier. If math is not your jam and it's easier to do in the moment, we've got a couple different options, and we'll definitely link these resources to you in the show notes. As always, we've got our online WAG alcohol macro calculator, where you could it basically takes the guesswork out of the equation and shows you exactly how to count alcohol into your macros with no second guessing. So what you could do is essentially pop in the total calories, and then we have this little toggle slider, and you slide it to the left to lean more towards carbs, slide it all the way to the right to go towards fats, or find that sweet spot somewhere in the middle, and the app will tell you exactly the number of carbs and exactly the number of fat to track into your macros. So easy, so nice, beautiful. Yeah. Thanks, Jordan and Matthew, for creating that. We love you. Yeah. And additionally, if you're a current WAG client, you have the joy of having the Seismic mobile app on your phone, where you could open that up, tap on any log of the week, tap into your little alcohol bucket, and then we've got this calculate a drink option. And we've got some built-in custom stuff for like beer, wine, alcohol, liqueurs, and mixed drinks you could use. or choose something custom. And here you can track by calories, or you can do it by alcohol, by volume, ABV percentage, and number of ounces. So like you could track something like recently I went to a comedy show. I had 2 Strongbow ciders. Those are like 5.5, or I think they're like 5% if I remember correctly. So I'd pop in 5% as the ABV. I had 2 of them, and their bottles are weird. They're like 11.2 ounces. So that'd be 22.4 ounces, right? Plug that info into the calculator here, and then I could just slide that slider and allocate whichever way I want. And then within the Seismic app, I can actually apply those calculated alcohol macros to my macros in the app, and my work is done, and then I'm on my way. And it's so nice.
There you go.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, I was gonna pipe something. Chris, you were on a roll, so I was just letting you go there. The one thing that I get questions about from clients that I work with sometimes is mixed drinks.
Yeah.
Because obviously, there's straight alcohol drinks, but there's also like fancy ones. I say fancy. Yeah. Margaritas. Are margaritas fancy?
Fancy meaning complicated.
Complicated? Okay. Yeah.
I think, that's how I look at it.
So there's these other little pieces that you have to factor in there too, because you might figure out the alcohol, but then you have to figure out, is it mixed with some sugary soda or some sugary mix?
Like a Cointreau or something else, or this or that has calories as well.
Yeah. And just, as with anything that you're tracking, it all adds up. It all adds calories. So even if you don't know the precise amounts of like that kind of thing, those add-ons in it, you have to calculate those. They don't magically just go away, or it's very easy, especially with a drink. This goes, I guess, for alcohol or non-alcoholic drinks. It's very easy to just keep going, keep drinking. And you're like, well, whatever. It's just a little bit, and like Chris said earlier, they add up.
Yeah.
Big time. So as summer approaches, and as we get deeper into the summer, I should say, that's something you just have to watch out on, and again, it's about trade-offs.
Yeah.
It's about looking at your day and about looking at what is kind of important to you. Like I said, if, hey, you're going to a wedding, you're going to toast the bride and groom, have a glass of wine, of course.
Worth it.
Yeah, of course. But if it's the, third day in a row and you're out with your friends on a boat and you're, toasted and sunburnt and you're going to keep on drinking, maybe it's time to reach for the water instead,
Right.
It's really, you got to use your own compass, gang. And be smart about it, because it does have its effects on you. Short and long term.
And it can be frustrating to feel like you're putting in all this work, and because you're working hard, you're also playing hard. And those two things can be in conflict with one another, and this is not to put shame or guilt around alcohol consumption or whatever, because let's be honest, it's probably never going away. That's right. It's probably always going to be around, and whether or not it's in your environment or your world comes down to a personal choice. And of course, the people you keep around you and the boundaries you're willing to set, with setting boundaries on saying, I'm going to this show tonight, I'm only going to have 2 drinks, and having the willpower and the discipline and to do that and show up and do the thing you say you want to do, or, recruit your friends' help, as we talked about having support systems in the past, is saying, hey gang, I need to stick to two drinks tonight. So please don't pressure me to drink any more than that. And if you see me maybe doing something I said I didn't want to do, please call me out on it. You have my permission. These things can make a world of difference in how you view certain social interactions that you have and social groups that you keep. And then, you might realize that you have friends where like all you ever do is go out and drink with them. And then maybe you question the validity of that connection and the value that also brings to your life, just as much as you're questioning the validity of alcohol in your life.
Yeah.
There's important things like that to understand too. Yeah. And so, really, it has its time and place, but the thing is, we don't want it to work against you. And so that's where the frustration kicks in. Cause like, how frequently after like a Friday night's lights workout or something like that, does like a group of CrossFitters go out and have some beers and smash some things, and then like, drinking too many drinks can lead to excessive food intake. So it has another adverse effect. And as we've already talked about, crappy sleep, you wake up the next morning, you're like, well, might as well go drink with the gang at brunch because I feel crappy already. So why not, hair of the dog, right? But like, honestly, like the hair of the dog thing is like, we know whatever, we know that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And what's generally easier and possibly better and more aligned with your goals is, changing that next action, saying, hey, I'm glad I got that out of my system last night. Today's my reset, and I'm just picking up where I left off,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back real quick to the comedy show that you went to, Chris.
Yeah.
You went out that night, and were you thinking about that? Were you like, you know what, like, you kind of looking at your tracker, you're looking at like how the week went, and were you making that decision ahead of time? Were you kind of like planning to have a few drinks that night?
Yes, and the reason being is I go to Comedy Works downtown, world famous Comedy Works, love it, best venue in America. They have a 2-item show, like a 2-item minimum in the showroom. So outside of paying for the ticket and getting in, so they have wait staff who are amazing, who bring you food and all this stuff. So it's a 2-item minimum. That could be 2 bottles of water. It could be a drink and an item of food. It could be 2 pieces of food. It doesn't matter as long as you purchase 2 things. Okay. So of course I have the choice to buy 2 bottles of water if I want to, but I'm also like, I don't want to pay for bottled water and create the plastic trash. Like, I don't, whatever. It's stupid to me. So I'm like, I like a Strongbow. Why not? We were waiting in line. We got to the show a little bit early. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll have one, and I'm like, I've tracked that before. I know that that's a reasonable thing. Doesn't take up too many calories on my day. And so that's the thing I wanted to point out too, is that the act of tracking your alcohol and understanding the things that you typically drink and enjoy, how they factor into things and what the actual calorie value is, it just puts things into perspective. So then you're like, oh, that's why I wasn't losing weight. I was smashing 10 400 calorie drinks every weekend. Like that obliterated my calorie deficit for the week, right? Like, that's not cool. And like all that work I put in was just outdone from an evening of shenanigans. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, why would I want to do that? So I had some wherewithal of like, I knew to do that, and I just kept it tame. 2 Strongbows, nice and easy. It was a Monday night, mind you, so I'm not trying to get rowdy, just trying to get a little laugh and have some fun with my friends that I went with, and that was it. And so, one and done. I also had some chicken fingers and French fries. And so,
there you go.
and, which were delicious. And that was it. And, tracked that to the best of my ability and called it a night. And I actually had some macros left by the time I got home. So it's awesome. Win-win. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right there, gang. That's the trade-off and the balance that we all are kind of searching for in our own little ways, I know that on my side of things personally, like, I don't drink. I'd never been into it really. And so when I don't even
know if I saw you drink on the staff retreats in the past. I don't think.
I've had I had a glass of wine like at our wedding, of course, and there might be a couple other occasions where I've had maybe a half a glass. Like again, it's mostly weddings. It really is. So when I go out, it's like, I don't even really think about it. I'll just get like a Diet Coke or something like that. But one thing that I also think about is the calorie consumption, that comes along with that. And it's like, if I could have, again, in my mind, this is just maybe my weird brain, but it's like, if there's a 200 calorie drink, and I break that down into carbs, it's 50 grams of carbs, like breaking everything down. So it's like, kind of want to I'd rather just eat 50 grams of carbs, like
you'd probably eat that burnt bagel in the morning. You'd love so.
You watch it, pal.
Call back.
For sure. But it's like, that's another thing is like, if you go out and you're like, like, it's been a long day. I'm really hungry. As soon as you start to like dive into like maybe a beer or having like a drink with your friends and stuff, those are just like calories that are just being chipped away. And like, maybe you'd rather have like, something extra, with your meal instead of drinking those calories. So that's something that I always, that runs through my brain. It just doesn't, again, weird brain over here. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, that's just another way to kind of view it. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. There is a trade-off. There's a time and place, and the value that you get out of learning to track alcohol in your macros and understanding how that affects you, as we've covered, and then how that fits in, plays the part or the role in your nutrition, is that you're like, essentially, you're preferring empty nutrient void calories for like a temporary pleasure feel that has long-term effect on you.
Yeah.
And it can, right? And health concerns, all these other things, but like, you know, that short-term, long-term of being able to get to your goals quicker, right?
Yeah.
So like if it means like a temporary sacrifice of just reducing alcohol intake, developing a better relationship with it, or maybe abstaining from it for a little while so that you can get to your goals a little bit quicker and then learn to maybe roll it in outside of the fact. Like there's so many ways to go about it. I've had clients do any number of journeys on their path, you know, like try to abstain, end up overdoing it when they do come back to it. And it's because they haven't learned to kind of factor it in a little more, you know, consistently and in a controlled way. But really what you're learning is it's just like, okay, do I want to drink this thing, this 500 calorie glass of liquid, or do I want to eat 500 calories worth of food that is going to actually take up physical space and volume in my stomach? It's going to send the reward pleasure system signals to the brain to say, hey, I'm full. You're good, pal. Take a break. And then that helps me sustain the calorie deficit more tolerably than consuming alcohol. That's going to leave me essentially empty and more likely wanting more calories than I wanted to begin with. And so that's those things where, like, you know, your every choice has a consequence and it could be good or bad. And all we're trying to do is just chalk up more of the good consequences.
That's right.
Because why not? You know?
Yeah, man. For sure.
So,
well, yeah. I mean, anything else on it, Chris? I think we covered everything we wanted to touch on.
I think we did, and we kept that within like 20 minutes, and I love that. I love that for us.
Pretty good, yeah. So gang, again, if you want to get one-on-one coaching from myself or Chris or anybody else that works with WAG as another coach, then please check us out at workingagainstgravity.com/join. Chris, we got a discount code?
We do. If you use at checkout code InsideWAG, we will take $50 off your first month of one-on-one nutrition coaching, and that applies to all membership tiers that we have, whether it be the traditional coaching, checking in weekly, our NCP, our Nutrition Coaching Plus program, that includes the written check-ins through Seismic, as well as one video chat with your coach per month. It all applies. We'll give you that discount.
Yeah. So check us out if you're in the market to get a little one-on-one coaching. We'd love to meet you. So cool. Well, thanks for joining us this week, gang, and we hope you have a good one and enjoy the summer.